All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I'm so excited to have another episode here with you guys today. Definitely ready, and excited to see, how you guys take this episode. I have a dear friend of mine on. But before I get started into all of that, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I first and foremost want to thank you guys for all the support, the encouragement you guys have been giving me, and just all you have done, to wrap around Resilient Voices and Beyond, the podcast, the coffee and conversations, and what have you. Truly could not do this without you guys. And just a special thank you to all the people I've had as guests before this and all the support you guys have been doing to support what they're doing and following some of their work. For those of you guys who don't know who I am and you just stumbled across this, my name is Michael D. Davis Thomas, aka MDDT Speaks. Yes, it is my initials. I spent a little bit over 11 years in the Michigan child welfare system, part of that being in the juvenile side, the other half of that being on the foster care side. Started advocating at age 15, and as soon as I aged out of the system, I started working, in and around the child welfare system, doing things such as corrections, working in juvenile facilities, working in congregate care facilities such as, placements, doing advocacy, doing policy work and program work nationally and statewide and so forth, which leads me here, to use my platform to help educate, to help people heal in some rights, to help people, share what they got going on and hope to be a resource and, do some outreach, and many other things. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to have my guest introduce herself.
All right. Hello, my name is Jada Davis. I am 28 years young. I'm a foster care alumni twice around. We'll get into that. I am a master crafter and a business mogul / entrepreneur.
Oh,
and
awesome.
A mom. Let's throw another one, mom. That's a job, so
It is. I love it. First and foremost, thank you for being on here. My first initial question is kind of just diving deep into you. I do a lot of panels and a lot of things. And one of the things you don't see in those places is, people diving deep in the person. They give them a bio and that's it, but you've lived through a lot, which we're going to dive deep into, that has helped you be who you are today. So if you don't mind me asking, when did your experience start in care and why?
8 years old. And honestly, if we want to be honest, it really started when a year after I was born. When I went into care, when they finally got their hands on me, they had been trying to get me since 94, and I was born in 93. So it was on my heels for the longest, I guess, and they finally caught up with me. So my mom, and then interned me. But a neglect, drug abuse, she just wasn't on her stuff at all.
Wow. So at a young age, it was just it was instability, so when you were removed, they finally caught up to you. Where did you go from there?
I went to a foster home. The first foster home I went to, I got adopted, actually.
Okay. And how was that?
Boy, I tell you what. I went back into foster care. We'll just say that. To keep it respectful, I don't like my adopted parents. I don't talk to them or anything, but it was an experience. I like foster care. It's an experience.
Definitely.
But I know that I'm an anomaly because the adoption didn't go well. It wasn't like, here's, close the book happily ever after the adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, to me, like a big thing, because once you're adopted, no, there's no more workers. Nobody's coming to check on you. Mm-hmm. So it was like a wolf in sheep's clothing, pretty much. They looked to be like the model parents, model citizens, and there was a lot of closeted stuff behind closed doors. The system should have, I feel like people need to be hooked up to lie detectors. Like, forget the class, forget, because you can lie. You can be like, yes, I love children and I'm going to treat this child, I'm going to love them like they're my own and all of that. And then later on down the road, stuff changes.
I definitely could agree with you there. And if you don't mind sharing a little input, I do a lot of peer support, a lot of mentoring with people who are currently in care and people who are transitioning out of care. And what I've noticed, what happened to you at a young age, it's still happening now. Like, as far as foster parents and adoptive parents, like, for some reason, their motives aren't pure.
Humans suck.
Um,
And then we start there. It's humans across the board, but like, because money is involved. Like once money gets involved, and it's like, to be honest, to be raw, even for people whose kids aren't put into care, even if they raise that kid, clothe them, feed them, that doesn't mean that they produced a mentally stable human. And then we as adults find that out in the dating world. When you try to date somebody and then you like, well, I had trauma too. Why your trauma do you like? You ain't worked on yours? So it's kind of like, to me, it's a catch-22. I just wish overall humans, the collective, just were understood more. It's more to feed. It's more than feeding the kid. It's so much more to it, honestly. And clothing them. And even if you're not verbally abusing them, are you teaching them how to cope in a healthy way? That type of stuff.
Definitely. I think, back to my experience and what I went through in my abuse,
Right.
Truly, the little things that I wish my parents would have done outside of the abuse, I mean, I can't excuse that, but the little things I wish they would have done. I remember experiences like, being beat because I wanted money for a field trip.
Right.
like I not to say I would excuse the abuse, but
no, but that's to backtrack that, and that's why, like, I'm so big on accountability, because it wasn't, you weren't getting beat for asking for money. You were getting beat because they didn't have the money to give you, and that was a trigger for you to ask, as a reminder that we don't have. I can't provide for you. And instead of saying that, because they don't know how to communicate that, it's just, I'm gonna hit. I don't know what to do with all these emotions. I'm going to release. And hitting is just like shooting a gun, right? You go to the gun range, if you go break dishes, any type of blunt force, but it shouldn't be to another human or animal, anything that can really feel, it shouldn't be. But yeah.
Definitely. Coming back around to your story. So the adoption didn't work. What was next after that?
A nice little roller coaster. After the adoption, while the investigation was going on, I was at a crisis shelter. You can only do 2 weeks there, and they accept just juvenile youth. Usually the youth that are there are maybe problematic. They have behavioral problems. Their parents sent them there as a way to kind of like give them a reality check, but it's not like a residential. It's not a lockdown. It's just structure. You can't be in your room at this time. We're all eating at this time. After that, it was court for the investigation. And they literally, the worker didn't start looking for a foster home until after court. And I remember vividly, and I was pissed. I was like, not understanding, because I'm like, well, I get that they had to understand which way the judge is going to rule. I get you can't always take the kid's word 100%, but obviously I knew it was true. I knew which way things were going to sway. And after court, we went out to Coney Island, and they were like begging people, you got a bed for these 2 girls? You got a bed? You got a bed? And it was just like, it was demeaning secondhand, because it was like, I'm a youth. I already don't have control of the situation. It's a messed up situation. I've been emotionally drugged through hell and back from the situation. And now I'm listening to you to say that you don't have anywhere for me to go. From there, we went to, I was able to go to a shelter, a youth shelter, which was like jail. This whole experience is traumatic because obviously, because it's like, I didn't do nothing to get locked up. Like, I'm locked up. Like, we can't wear our clothes. I got orange sweatsuit. There is no wearing your outside clothes unless you're going to court.
So as a foster youth, you were took into like a facility.
Yes, facility. So the first time, like I said, I went to the first foster home and they adopted me, and it didn't work out with them. And then when I went back into foster care, like I said, it was just a roller coaster ride. So I go to the shelter, and then shortly after that, I get an interview to go to a residential, which was a facade, a huge facade. And so this man comes and interviews, and I'm thinking, when you lead with an interview, if I interview you to even be in my facility, you would think that the facility has high regard. You're thinking, yeah, this must be something. And that was a residential. It's closed down. Boys and Girls Republic in Farmington Hills. That one got closed. It was too much going on. But yeah, after that, I went there, and I was there for about 3 months. During that time, I was this close to suing the state of Michigan because I felt like they had jeopardized my safety. 2 days before they put me in the residential, some youth had set a unit on fire as a distraction to run.
Set a unit on fire.
It's a co-ed. It's closed. It was wild. They used to call it, like I said, the full name is Boys and Girls Republic, but BGR for short.
Okay, I know it from there. Yeah.
And the staff was calling it Club BGR, and stuff like that. But it was hectic. And the turning point for me was because I was calling every day, like, you only get a foster home. I'm like, nobody. And so the turning point was when there was like a riot. Like, a lot of the youth went through it, and they were naked, so staff can't restrain them. You can't touch a naked youth. So they're on staff cars, girls and boys, everybody. I didn't even get a glimpse of it because, mind you, I'm inside like a good little noodle because I don't care to go. I'm just trying to do my time. Because at this point,
I'm trying to get out.
They won't let me out. No, because if you did fight, mind you, it's a hostile environment. That's why, I was this close to suing the state of Michigan because they were streaking, and a couple, because it was co-ed. The girl had a broken arm and leg, and the guy had a concussion because of the fight. I've witnessed the girl. It's all traumatic. Like I said, I'm in baby juvie. I'm calling my worker, like, why am I wasn't truant. I didn't skip school. I didn't get court order, so I hated that. That was my first introduction to seeing that they mix everybody in the system. We gonna throw y'all all in the I was in there. Listen to me. I was in there with somebody who had put battery acid in their dad's coffee. And I had to take on myself. We talking lockup. We talking eat your food before somebody else did. We talking. I'm scared. Oh no. And if you fought, so again, somebody could be picking with you. The first night that I was there, Michael, somebody took my bunk bed, top bunk, while I was on it, and took that bitch off the wood. And I drug it and slept in the living room because if I was to fight, it's going to be an incident report, and the judge can make you stay longer. Which, how did that make sense? If I wasn't here for fighting, I just want to know if we arresting bears, because you're gonna go poke a bear, like I can't defend, my whole mattress. So it was a thing because it is like jail. They're going to test you. Somebody's going to test you to see what are you made of. And then if you show them, yeah, no one's going to bother you, but now you got an incident report. Now you got to deal with that in court. So after that, they finally found a foster home, and I was there for a short time, but I learned quickly to be like, if I don't like it, put in the 2 weeks. Like, that was me. I'm going to beat you to the punch. Because it is sad, obviously, if people always put in 2 weeks on you. And luckily, I didn't have that happen. I know the person I'm with, his mother was a foster child. And before we had all these programs, right? And she went from state to state. And I see she's older, she's in her 60s. And I see how that, you feel disregarded. You feel like, okay, we're just going to push you to the side, So whenever I was in a home, right after the residential, and stuff wasn't going right, whether stupid stuff, getting blamed for eating food. And it's like, because I'm a loner, like during family game night, I'm probably somewhere else, just sitting by myself. But like, really, I'm coping. I'm constantly coping. That's why I'm constantly coping. But at that time, they look at it like, well, everybody else is playing the game and the other foster kids, she must be the one that took the stuff. She must be the one, because we never really see her much, or, So I just went from foster home to foster home, honestly, until I was able to get into semi-independent living. So after the residential, I believe I went to maybe 2 more foster homes. And it's just so, what is it, chaotic, disheveled. I went to one, and my adopted sister, she has a problem with sticky fingers. Not sure where the source comes from, but I was always getting blamed. I begged them not to put us together, okay, from the residential. They called, they said, we got one foster home. We got one foster home for the both of you. I took it because the residential was hairy. It was really hairy. And I said, like I said, after I watched somebody get beat with a fire extinguisher, and I was just like, it was wild. They would take the staff. It was STDs running rampant because it was in the woods. It was co-ed. They had like ran. People was, I guess, out in the woods having sex. It was just so much craziness. And I was catapulted into it. Like, imagine like culture shock, but life shock because you looking over your shoulder. Okay, well, let me hurry up and eat my food. And like, if you don't want to participate, all right, it's 5 o'clock and we playing softball, but you just don't want to play, right? You could be sad, you could be feeling whatever, but now, like, you know, you didn't got in trouble because you're not following program. Program says we're doing this. And it's just like such a, that aspect of foster care, that component of the system, I just feel like is one of the ones that needs to be changed quickly because I didn't need to be exposed to all that. And I felt like stuff like that, if you weren't the villain, you can become the villain. Because where I entered being soft and kind and just, I had to become something else because I was public enemy number one. The staff loved me, everybody hated me. Staff was bringing me McDonald's and like, you know, I was getting favoritism because again, I'm not problematic. So I'm just gonna like, and if I don't do program, there's a good reason for it. But some staff didn't like that either because again, like if I don't want to get out, leave the room, I'm not leaving the room. Like, if I want to stay in bed all day, you know, that's what it is. I'm human. And, you know, so it's just like after that, being able to go to semi-independent living was helpful because foster homes, you know, when there's other kids involved, it becomes so. Initially, the first one, I left because of accusations, and the foster mom got to be too hostile. Like, she put her finger in my face, and because we've been through so much trauma, like we get a snap. Snapping could be around the corner. That's why it's called coping is the key. Don't ever, and I'm gonna say this candidly, and I apologize for my language. Don't ever bullshit yourself. Don't ever bullshit yourself like you couldn't turn into the villain and slaughter a whole. You know, you never. It was just, and that's why we keep ourselves in check. So she was giving me the finger in my face one day over something I didn't do. This, you know, because what happens if I'm human, right? And I react. No, you're the foster kid that jumped on a foster mom. Like, no, she keeps accusing me of stuff. She's, if I was at you with my fingers, like I'm about to poke your eye out here. Wait. So I left there and I went to another home. And would you believe? So when I went back into foster care, it was because my adopted dad had tried to unfortunately sleep with me. He didn't physically touch me. He was just coming on strong, real strong and everything. And that's what led to me going back into foster care. Well, now fast forward and I'm on the second foster home after the residential. There's only 2 of us. And the young woman, she was there before me, and the foster mom was ready to adopt her, right? Foster mom has a husband. Husband is a trucker. One fine morning, she comes to me and she confides in me and tells me what the husband has been saying and doing to her. And I'm like, oh, well, you need to say something, you know? I can't say it for you. I approached the situation logically. Would you believe it was turned around on me? I put those words in her head. You understand? So it's just like, it's so traumatizing because like, it's like, you can't be the good guy. You have no assistance. So that home, I ended up having to vacate from. I came home from school one day. It was pack your stuff. They're doing an investigation. Oh, you'll be back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks didn't ever happen. And from there, I went to live with a Jamaican lady. And I didn't know anything about her. We was just in a car. It's just, well, I'm asking questions. Yeah, I don't know. Whole lot of I don't knows, which is weird because you would think they would have a file on the foster parent. And because of everything that I've gone through, I have so much gumption now. You understand? like I'm really coming for it because where's the following the foster parents? Y'all have a following the foster kids, and it's very belittling as because my adopted mom, before she adopted me, she had other foster kids, and I'd overhear those conversations about what's in the file, about this parent did crack and this and this and this and this, and they were this, and you understand. As a kid, you hear that and you like, damn, like I'd ask to be born. This is my life, and now I feel like I'm being belittled even for. It's never a loving. Very rarely are we greeted with true love, but most people don't love themselves, and that's why I want people to. Everybody who gets this message, I want you. You have to love yourself. Most people don't love their self, so they're never going to be able to love you. You're always going to feel like Swiss cheese with a bunch of holes. It's people whose kids didn't even. That's what it is. It's people whose kids didn't even make it to foster care, but they never got enough hugs. Mom and dad didn't hug them, It's a lot of men who are taught the same thing, you can't be vulnerable. You just got to be okay all the time. And that's not realistic. You know what I'm saying? But it was after that home, because of a sexual allegation, which not only did it get turned back on me and the young lady who confided in me went to therapy at the same location. At this time, my therapist has kind of become my mentor. And of course, she broke the rules, but I think the rules are always broken. There's always a youth that and it came in a nick of time because I had therapy since I was 8. And at this point, I'm like 16, 17. And my mentor is telling me, she's like, the young woman's therapist came to her. They both work at the same establishment and said, your client needs to stop really, you understand? And it was so crazy to me because once I was talking to my therapist at the time and my mentor, she let me know that like they've already come to me, and she said she dismissed it because she knew, it wasn't true. Like pretty much I was trying to mirror this onto this girl, but it's like the things that make people make up in their head, again, they don't vet the foster parents good enough. Why would I mess up my stability? There's nothing wrong with the foster home. Yeah, it's strict. Yeah, there's rules, but it was a decent foster home, right? It's pretty decent. It was in Warren. The foster mom was pretty nice. We do dinner with the neighbors sometimes. I like stuff like that, right? So it's like, why do I want to mess up and be chaotic and be like, oh, well, say he did something to you. And years later, me and her ran into each other at a fashion show for the young woman who confided in me. And it came full circle, because what she was saying was true, but strength. We all have to stay strong, always stand in your truth, because it'll be a hard pill for someone else to swallow, but that doesn't mean it's not true. So they didn't want to hear, even with me, with my original situation with my adopted dad, they didn't want to believe it was true. My adopted dad eventually was in court trying to say like, I think I was just lying or something because I was upset about being on punishment, something stupid, something stupid. But when I initially called CPS myself a few months after he said the things that made me uncomfortable. He was making comments about my breasts. I was 16. And he was asking me about my first love and why do you love him? And it was just a weird experience for me. But once I told CPS, I was interrogated. I mean, to the full, and it's like that. I have so much gumption now. I have a low bullshit policy because boy, they tried it. And I mean, with the double-sided mirror, and it's like, it was so bad that I almost wish I didn't say nothing. The journey from me opening my mouth to say, because he kept coming in my room, he would sit on the bed in his boxes and he'd be like, I see you haven't said anything yet. And then I'm not stupid, so I'm like, he's thinking shit's okay. He's like, oh, you haven't said anything yet. And it's like, I couldn't be comfortable. And my adopted dad had prior allegations. So I'm not the first one. We've already had a family meeting about him saying something about a teenager's breast when we were younger. And then my adopted sister pulling me to the side. We were walking to school and she pulled me to the side. And she was like, what would you say if I told you George asked me to lift my shirt? We were in the 6th grade. Asked me to lift my shirt up and he gives me some money. And I just looked at her because what would you that's some shit you're kind of just gonna look at a person like, wait a minute. And we're in the 6th grade. So I'm like, it's early in the morning. And she stopped and she's like, oh, I'm joking. But she wasn't. I know she wasn't, So by the time it got to me, I was the last person. I decided I was the last person who was going to hear any of the sort, you know. But after that, it was just a long, long, long journey. And after that foster home, and it broke my heart because to be accused of, and both of the ladies were named Tracy, both the foster parents, and they did respite, respite housing.
Mm-hmm.
The Tracy I was with after the residential, then the one I moved with after that Tracy, like I said, they did respite for each other. And so now they're talking to each other like, oh, well, I got this foster girl. It's like we're automatically public enemy number one. Nobody wants to believe you. Nobody want,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that's how we get all these triggers. Now we're adults and you're super defensive. As soon as somebody doesn't believe you, you feel like you got to over-explain. You got to let them, you got to prove that you're not lying, because we've always had to prove ourselves. We can't be given the benefit of the doubt for some reason. After that, I went to the Jamaican foster mom who was she was neglectful. I was doing my own thing. I think I was a difficult youth though, because I didn't follow rules, but I wasn't disrespectful. I'm still going to be honor roll. I'm still going to go to school. It's just, I was really mature. I'm very mature. And so the rules that were in place for the typical 16, 17-year-old, I threw those out the window. I was like, I know I'm not going to get pregnant prematurely. Now that's not going to be me. I get that me saying I know that doesn't give people peace of mind who are looking after me, But does it give me peace of mind to feel like a caged animal and you don't trust me either? You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the Jamaican foster mom, I stayed there for a while and ended up, she put in a 30-day notice for me, but she was really old, like 73 or something. And after that, I went into semi-independent living for a little, and then off to college, and I just aged out of the system. After that, I just decided, and that was still, semi-independent living was still something, because the house mom, it was copacetic, but the person who owned the house, her best friend was the house mom, which is fitting because we all pay the rent. The semi-independent, the state cuts us a check, and then out of that check, we pay our rent. She owns the house. So I had already, I'm in high school, I had already crunched the numbers, but she didn't clean, of course. So like, oh, you get a free room and board, but we all use the same bathroom, you never cleaned. Little things like that. Or with issue or noise, sharing spaces. It's like, we have so many triggers. Like you'll look up and you look up and realize, damn, if you really do the work, and it's not fair to us, we didn't ask to have all these triggers, but it's our responsibility now that we're adults. So now I'm like, okay, but sharing this space with this lady, and it's like, oh, and her family's over and they're super loud. And I was happy to go off to college to be free. I feel like foster care needs to be treated with more, I don't even have the word. It needs to be treated with this to let you know, because you're a man. Before a woman leaves the hospital, every woman, every time she has a baby, has to watch, I think it's like a 2-hour video and sign paperwork about not killing the baby. Because the stress of a newborn and the stress that a body has just went through, and as soon as the baby comes, there's no sleep, right? So this is an analogy, you understand? They don't care. The hospital's not going to listen to you say, I'm not going to kill my baby, I've had 7 kids. They want you to watch this video, right? So I feel like foster parents should get the same type of, okay, I don't care that you've raised your family and this and that. You need to really understand, overstand actually, that it takes a lot. It takes a lot to love somebody who's gonna push you away because they don't know how to accept love. How do I accept love if every time I go to somebody's house, the picture's never on the mantle? As soon as something gets done, it's me. I'm the bad guy. Whether it's their grandkids or kids. Like, who really has my back? Nobody. Initially, just you, until you find a network of people. And then by that time that happens, you don't know how to fully accept love,
First and foremost, I want to just thank you for your vulnerability and openness and sharing. Truly appreciate it. And please don't mind me. I'm laughing because I went through over 20 different residential facilities. So what you're saying and what you're speaking about, I know it all too well, and unfortunately, we've seen it from two different lenses, you being, a woman and me being a man. But more than likely, so the places you've been in, I've probably been in myself. And it's a survival. It's a survival style of life that you have to pick up, and a lot of people don't understand that the care that you're supposed to get, first of all, let's back. We're trying to impose a system to be a parent when rightfully when you're born, you're supposed to receive that from human beings. You're supposed to receive that from two people who love you, and care for you and provide a nurturing environment that's there for the little moments and the big moments. But we're trying to supplement that with a system that shoots off a case number and a caseworker that is told that I have to have certain boundaries, even if you get it that certain boundaries around this kid. So there's going to be some missteps. There's going to be some flaws ingrained in that youth because this is not how it's supposed to be. You weren't supposed to be raised like that. Nonetheless, we add in a facility because we ain't got no beds for no foster homes, or the foster homes we do got beds in, they under investigation because they tripping, so we put you in a facility because we don't have any beds. So this facility is really trying to get, every dollar on the hour, so they're mixing, people who have done criminal things where they still should be in a place because they're juveniles, where they're getting therapeutic care. They did something wrong. They still should be in a place where they're getting therapeutic care. But it should not be with people who have trauma in the foster care abuse and neglect side. There should be some separation because there's two different types of care that needs to be given. There's two different types of therapeutic healing that needs to be done. Yes. And by mixing those, you cause more trauma, which is what you spoke about. I remember outside of being in care, coming to be a youth care worker and having a kid stripped down naked and climb a tree. And my supervisor told me, you got to go get that kid. I'm like, how am I supposed to get the kid? How am I supposed to get the kid? And I got 5, 6 other kids here. They trying to go do this. And they doing right, So on the other hand, seeing things from both lenses, I know all staff aren't bad, but I also know people are dealt a bad hand. And unfortunately, when money is involved, it turns the system upside down. And that's what we've seen with a lot of our programs, our system as a whole. And unfortunately, who gets affected by that? The youth. And we're told to continue living as nothing happened, and we're told, unfortunately, because this is something that happens, you age out of the system and you're asking for all these different things that they said that are afforded to you.
Yes.
And you're told that you're entitled, but you endured
don't nobody
so
owe
much.
You nothing. Don't nobody owe you. Listen, here's my response, and I'm so sorry for the dark. But I remind people every day, unfortunately, murders and serial killers, go check their background. You understand, they had messed up childhoods, okay? They didn't get to that point overnight. So all this, I'm entitled, I'm trying to be okay. We don't want me to not be okay. We don't want me to fall and take people with me. I hope not. And I don't want it to come to that, but damn, I still need help. At 30, I still, because where's the safety net? I remember in college when my professor in law said she moved in with her parents, moved back in to do graduate school, to go on her get her master's in law. I'm just like, well, I won't ever be able to do that. That's a nice, cushy resource, And that hits hard today, tomorrow, forever. Watching family movies forever.
I think I lost you for a second.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You said your professor
she moved
back in.
Yeah. And it's just, that's a luxury I won't ever have. That's a luxury. So today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, that wound is still there. You can't heal a neglect and trauma wound. Like time will make it easier to cope, but it's still there. Like when I watched The Grinch, the new remake, because it's been out for years, So I'm pregnant and there's obviously extra hormones, but I really took it in because I'm like, obviously the Grinch is traumatized so bad that that's why he doesn't like Christmas. That's why he wants the whole holiday. He's not the nicest, but he's not evil every day of the year. It's just Christmas because I have nobody. Nobody ever loved me, and all I got is my dog. And before the dog, but the dog don't take away the memories. So I hear everybody singing, and all I do is close my eyes and remember, damn, I was sitting there that cold day, and year after year after year. And my question is, for every human who listens to this, how long does it take before your heart shrinks? How many times of neglect do you think you're going to endure before you become somebody that you don't recognize? Whether it's lashing out, being snappy, being closed off. It's just like, that's why it's PTSD. It exists for a reason. And foster care is 2 times more traumatic than war.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I try to get people to understand. Like, I get that you want us to be okay, but what does being okay look like? What does being okay look like when, like, I can't reach my hand out for a resource? If I'm dry, you know what I'm saying? I have to really build my own network of people. But my mentor, she has 3 sons. She wanted to adopt me. Her sons, co-ed stuff, co-ed problems. Her son said, "Ma, I can't make you no promises." and when she told me that, I understood. Because I'm not a blood. Do you understand? So, but when I call her for help, I always remember she has 3 of her own kids. I'm not 100% her responsibility. So I have a support system, although it's light, but at the same time, it's still not the same thing as when your family really rides for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're supposed to. It's not the same.
Wow. I'm just processing all that is, and just, thinking about, my experience on top of that. So you made it to college. You made it through.
Made it to college.
And I say that lightly because I remember graduating high school, man, like skating through that boy and be like, "Oh, I have to go to college," And I didn't go. I'm being truthful, and a lot of people, I've said this before, I didn't go to college because it was the all beats all. Just being completely honest with everybody, I went to college because I was told that you're gonna get a refund check, and I knew I needed the money. So my first initial go to college was to make it. I thought because I made it through high school, I can just make it through this, and it was a totally different experience. So what did that experience entail for you? You got to college. How did life pick up from there?
College was fun, but it was facing facts. When it's time to move in, friends and family day, not so much. Care packages, not so much. And I was in a dorm with 7 other girls, 7 other people to constantly be in my face, and not on their own. But that's why we have to check our triggers. They're not trying to trigger me with their happy families. And then they would call my mom and dad, and I'm just sitting there like, everything I have, I bought by myself. And if I don't buy it, I'm not gonna get it. And so when I was moving in, and they're like, I'm like, "Oh, my worker," and they're like, "You have a worker? What's a worker?" I have a worker. My worker is gonna help me move in because other than that, I'm not gonna be moving into this dorm, and my worker has to help me move out. Like, it was. I worked. What I did, I started my business. I knew that eventually my state stipend was gonna stop. Now, refund checks, they kept me afloat. But I worked 3 jobs. I worked 3 jobs and ran a business and I now have a brain aneurysm. And like, a small part of me thinks it came about from the stress that I put myself through. But, and people would tell me like, you're going to kill yourself. But it's like, I'm either going to die grinding or I'm going to just be floating, because it's unnerving, obviously, to not know how something's going to get paid. I really can't call for the bailout, so I have to make sure that I have it together. And if I do, how many times am I going to be able to call my mentor? It's like, I don't want to test another person's patience for my bullshit. Like, you understand? It's like Kevin Hart said something in one of his clips. He was to his best friend, my bullshit is your bullshit. Your bullshit is my bullshit. That's how it's supposed to be when you locked in, right? Whether it's a marriage, a friendship. But when it comes to, like I said, somebody playing that role of family to me and we're not blood, I do believe that blood is not thicker than water. But at the same time, I don't want to pour resources away from your tribe, essentially. Pretty much, like looking at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And college I have 7 class. I left, what was it? After working 3 jobs, I was doing too much. So I believe that college flows better when you don't have to work, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have to really think about, I have to pay bills, I have to provide, I have to buy my car, I have to do this, because your job wants your time and attention, and so do class. The professor don't want to hear it because it's expectations, it's responsibilities, that type of thing. So pretty much I ran myself rugged in college, but and then I took some time off and went and had a kid and was just like, I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. And so I took a step back from that path. I only have 7 classes, so I'm going to finish. But while I was living in Saginaw, it was a slum lord. It was just too much. And I felt like I had even less of a support system there in Saginaw. So it was like, and nobody was coming an hour and a half to visit me or that type of stuff. And so I just took a step back and came back to Detroit.
You know, that's a city. You know, I hate and love my city, but hate and love, it's a different kind of relationship, you know. But definitely, I appreciate you sharing that, and it sucks. It truly sucks because one hand you're forced to be, if you want to grow, if you want to advance, they tell you to go to college, you know, or get a certificate. You know, there's different things that they tell you to do now,
Yeah.
but you know, all college is what they mostly try to push at you. So you go to college, but college is still set up. And this is something for you guys that are listening in the audience, you know, listen to this episode. College is still technically and wholeheartedly set up for students who have parents, who have a support system, so they can totally focus and their parents can pay for it all. Like they can totally focus on this. They maybe pick up a work study if they want some extra money on it, on a weekend, you know, stuff like that. But it's not set up for individuals who have been in the child welfare system, who are on their own, who experience homelessness and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because trying to work 3 jobs while going to school, you know, man.
It's even 2. So it's just like, I agree, but that's why it's just like, we're foster care alumni, we're built for entrepreneurship and stuff, and it's still not going to be easy, but there's going to be a lot of trigger. Number 1, we are a big ball of just like trigger, like a landmine. So, okay, when you go punch the clock, now your boss and yelled at you for some shit you did. I've been getting yelled at my whole, I'm an adult. You're not going to yell at me now. You know?
Right.
Right. So it's harder to hold down a job, or especially with feeling undervalued, just different things that you go through. Normal things that anybody goes through are going to be amplified for us. And that is the key. It could be normal for somebody else, but it's going to be amplified for us because we've already had all these underlying experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to take a step back, you know, because a lot of what I do on this platform and in my advocacy is talking about mental health. I'm talking about self-care, because there's so many stigmas, you know, because of over-medication or misdiagnosis and all these different things that happen to us in the system, you know, that some of us, even me and you being, you know, Black, you know, and a part of the minority group, you know, we already know in our culture, we strayed away from anything to do with mental health. So what has that journey been for you, and what does it look like for you now as an adult as far as taking care of yourself and self-care?
I'm trying to think of a way to streamline this. Unfortunately, at the top of everything, we're not taught how to properly care for ourselves. We're taught on all humans, how to get on the wheel and make money, right? Work, pay bills, die. Most people don't chase their dreams. They tried to, something happened, they had kids, they need to hold on a job that pays the bills, right? So when it comes to mental health, I kind of look at it like throw out everything that they've told you, almost pretty much. Throw out everything they told you. Because in society, mental health is not pushed, right? Mental health isn't really talked about. So, but they tell you what not to do. Don't do shrooms, don't smoke weed, don't do this, don't do that. I'll say I go against like, as somebody, I worked in a residential too. I worked in a substance abuse residential. Alcohol isn't gonna help. It's like, to me, one of the worst coping mechanisms. And people, this isn't to push anything, it's to say like, there's levels to coping. Depending on how bad you are, you may not be able to do a mundane coping task. You may not be able to color. It may not be a phone call. You may be too distraught for that. Sometimes you're so distraught that you have to just break down fully before you can even get to a coping mechanism. However, now we're adults, right? Bills, job, responsibilities. When I first went into foster care, I cried for 3 months straight. I cried. I had a crying spell for 3 months straight, right? I had no way to cope with that. I had no fucking way. I just had to go through that. Well, if I'm depressed for 3 months, that's going to be a problem. A lot of stuff isn't going to happen, right? And so that's why I say, like, I personally, so I smoke, but I look at it like maybe a glass of wine, but always analyze everything in moderation, because never just have one coping mechanism. I can't just cope with weed. It can't just be weed, 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 weed. I'm happy, mad, sad. I'm going to smoke because it won't become a coping mechanism. A coping mechanism shouldn't be used 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? Just like an antibiotic. If you take this antibiotic all the time, any type of medicine, any type of medication, your body just built up a resistance to it. Your brain will build up a resistance to that thing taking the edge off. And that's how people develop addiction and stuff like that as well. And my biggest thing is face facts. It's hard. But my biggest thing about mental health is not bullshit myself. I've recently realized my neglect was playing out very ugly in my relationship because my significant other didn't have time. Not on purpose. It was because of work stuff, right? Things just coming up, but it had been like 2 weeks, okay, and 3 weeks. And so now I'm acting out almost like a kid does, but as an adult. But I had to realize where that came from because my neglect is not his problem. So I had to realize you're triggering me because all these adults neglected me and I was their responsibility. So if you love somebody and you give them your heart, I look at it like I'm your responsibility, and now I feel emotionally left out. So I journaled and I released because I had to really feel deep, because it's not his job, it's not anybody's job to fill that hole. And unfortunately, as an adult, it can't really be filled. My mom can't make up for the time she wasn't there. She can't become a better parent all of a sudden, neither can my dad. I had to really zero in on it, and it sucks. But it also sucks to hurt those that you love. It also sucks because there are people who leave. You'll end up isolated. So it sucks. So you have to it's an ugly backstep process of, okay, I lashed out, I yelled. When was the last time I felt this emotion? Okay, well, when do I first remember feeling this emotion? Do you understand? And really unpack it. And that is how you work on your mental health. Don't ever BS anybody. If you are a snappy person, lead with that. Don't try to because you do more harm than good. And as always, I say, be an open book, at least with yourself. You don't have to tell everybody every detail, but at least discussing your trauma helps you verbalize it, and you hear it played back, and then you'll analyze it differently, and you'll realize, okay, well, I wasn't the catalyst. Okay, well, this all sucks, but I can't make anybody do anything. I can only change and work on me. So how am I going to move forward? And it sucks really bad, but I just always say, stray away from things that are gonna injure, get you in the hospital. Like the breeze pens, my best friend just had lung surgery. She had a lung collapse. She was hitting the breeze. And so it's just like, society will sell you a breeze, but they won't sell you shrooms because you've been taught your whole life that it's so bad and you're not supposed to take it. But there's like a bigger agenda behind that. So I always say, take the reins of your life. Don't listen to anybody. I know people who won't touch weed because there's this stigma, and they're not because of a job, not because, oh, my job makes me drop. They're just like, oh, there's this stigma. But I'm like, right, but I'm sure if you smoked, you'd perk up and you'd be able to better handle the task instead of wallowing in the sadness, right? You look at essentially, it's like, oh, instead of crying over my cup of spilled milk, okay, well, it's spilled. I'm out of milk. How am I going to make some more money to get more milk? Who's going to bring me milk? Who can I call to bring me some milk? Do you get what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
that's like even taking baths in salt because it removes impurities and negativity. It's like mental health is much more dense than we think because your triggers, you got underlying triggers, and you're going to be triggered all day, every day. You have triggers that you've repressed that you don't even understand. You know what I'm saying? You have to really know yourself. You have to give yourself time to not be okay. You have to know when to seclude and kind of get into your own coping rhythm. Depending on what you're coping from, obviously it's not going to be a day. So I'm coping every day. Holiday season. What did I just go see? Black Panther. I was crying out on Black Panther. I'll be in the I wish they loved me like that. You know, it's like, it's nothing we can do. You just have to hope. That's not true. What you can do is essentially piece yourself back together so that you're whole enough to receive the love, so that when somebody's family, because I've had people's family accept me in, usually like when I date or something like that, but you don't want to be the person that, yeah, your spouse accepts you, but the family like, damn, they a little messed up. Like, you want to come home. You understand?
Yeah. I only have a couple more questions for you, and three questions for you, really. My first question touches on a little bit what you just spoke upon, but I know you're a mom, I know been out here in the relationship world, and what have you. What has that journey been, coming from the trauma that you have endured, recovering and taking on that journey of healing, like you spoke about, and going through different levels of your triggers and coping and piecing yourself back together as you spoke. How has that journey been for you as far as relationships, being a mom, being a person out here dating, being a spouse and what have you?
Right. It's been okay. What I'll say is that, like, for me, I haven't been the problem because I've worked on myself. What's important is to not ever trauma bond. I think Keisha Cole went through that with some football player. You can be friends on the basis of trauma, but just because you and somebody else have been through trauma, you shouldn't date. And essentially, because we're all like Swiss cheese, until you properly find the people who are really going to be cemented into your life, who really have your back and are going to be your support system, because you have holes in you, you're fragile. You're not as strong. So let's say you get into an abusive relationship, right? You thought, like, you can say you gave, and it can go both ways, male, with the man being abused or the woman. And it's like, you were vulnerable. You wanted love. Okay. I know people who are with families or who've gone back to their biological family and they shouldn't have, because of wanting that love so badly. And that's why I say love yourself, because if you want love so bad, you will easily accept a sheep in wolf's clothing, or wolf in sheep's clothing. You'll accept that really easy because it's going to be easy to love bomb you, and then you'll get roped in, and then that's kind of how I look at it. But overall, because of everything I've been through and because I'm so introspective, I've been able to help people, because I've come across people who haven't been in foster care, whose trauma is kicking their butt. And I had to step back and say, like, really, you don't need to convene with any human. You really need to go work on you. It's gonna suck, but like I told someone, nothing grows in a comfort zone. And once your traumas, your triggers, your demons, underlying stuff that does, we want to drown out, eventually you're gonna have to face it. And it's gonna be detrimental. People are gonna start to say the same thing, and you get what I'm saying? It's gonna become problematic in one way or another. So because I'm so introspective, I haven't had that as much, and I try to help other people through it. I try to really be nurturing. I get it, because a broken person, you understand, only a really broken person can understand another broken person. Like, I get it, but I also believe in accountability. I also believe in like really checking yourself and saying, okay, which person do I want to be? Do I want to run towards darkness, or do I want to run towards the light? You know?
Definitely. My next question for you is, what advice would you like to leave here today? You gave us a lot, really. You gave us a lot, but I'm gonna ask for one more piece of advice that you would like to leave here today.
Go try something new. Go do new things, have new experiences, because that's where you'll find your coping. And even in the most basic things, going for a walk, you'll find coping in doing humanitarian things and giving back. You know, that's where you'll be able to cope. And just stopping somebody from making the pitfalls that you made, the youth that are coming up, helping them navigate the feelings that you felt in those situations. Pay it forward and you'll grow.
Definitely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Last question, more so statement from you. Any last comments? And this space is really for you to share. If you got a rap song, an album, business, which what have you, to drop that information so people can follow the things that you're doing, the work that you're doing, or donate or support you.
Right. Well, I am, and like I said, I'm a master crafter and business mogul / entrepreneur. I make many things. I'm in my office right now. I'm just like, but I didn't want to move around too much. Let's see. Oh, here's something in arm's reach. But this is a oh, my brightness is up. I don't think I turned it down. The glare, focus. You're not gonna focus? No, now it focused. Okay, the ring like the way it's like it's okay. So yeah, this is a resin tray. The camera is so I guess it's too much going on. Maybe if I hold it back here. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just resin crafts. I sell hair growth oil. I make waist beads. I craft some of everything. I have controllers that light up. I have waist beads and so many different things that I make, but I can be followed on Instagram at knots KNOTS _tangles TANGLES _. And then that's where you'll be able to see like a lot, because I have so many things. You'll be able to see, everything together.
Awesome. I just want to thank you for being on here and taking the time, and bearing with my Zoom update.
It's okay.
And what have you. Truly, I appreciate, your rawness and your openness and your vulnerability and sharing your story and your experience. I truly believe by sharing, helps us get to that place of creating change.
Yes.
You've been there. I know you've worked in residentials, you've done the panels and all these other different things and stuff like that. And it's a lot of scripted things. They want to show the pretty. And
no, yes,
I was just
about to say. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay you're gonna be angry. Okay, mm-hmm. You're gonna be angry because now you got to clean up some shit that you didn't do to yourself. But please don't direct that anger at other people. You have to learn how to channel that anger and use it to propel you to go through your metamorphosis.
Definitely. With that being said, as I get ready to end out the episode, a lot of things said on here could be potentially triggering, and I want to be
apologize for that.
I want to be mindful. So if you were triggered, you made it to the end of this episode, before you do anything else, make sure you bring yourself back to baseline, take some time to do some mindfulness exercises, some self-care, something that brings you back to that happy state of mind, or talk to somebody, if it's something that, came across your mind, a memory or what have you, and you know, just don't know, what caused it, talk to somebody, a friend, a family member, a pet, a dog, Um, but also know that I am here as a resource. Feel free to contact me if you want to embark on this journey, of healing or, pursuing mental health, something from this that's stricken you to be like, okay, I need to get help about this. I'm here, as a resource, and I would love to help you, start that journey. But one thing is, don't sit in it. Don't sit in it and allow yourself to, get into that sunken place. Most important thing about this and why, I have people coming on here sharing and I'm sharing my story is to share it from a place of strength,
Yes.
and share it from a place of healing and a place of this is where you can get to. I don't want anyone to take this in a negative light. And if it does fall that way, to know that there are people here to help you and there's resources. With that being said, cold and flu season and COVID is still out there. Please, please, take care of yourself. Like I got the Lysol right here, I got the hand sanitizer, everything, if you feel yourself getting sick or feel something coming on, please, just throw that mask back on. We all are part of this big village. It literally takes one of us taking care of ourselves to take care of all of us. We're all neighbors in this thing called life, so do the right thing. Also, just keep the hand sanitizer. You got to put that mask back on. Go ahead and throw it back on for a few seconds. You get in your own spot. You can do your own thing. But in public, please, be mindful of others. Lastly, I'm getting ready to end season 2. I'm taking a little bit of a break. I'm at 70 something episodes. I don't know what number I will be at when I end this. I believe I'm at 23 episodes in season 2, 51 in season 1. So this episode will be 23 of season 2. So I'm going to be taking a break to kind of take the words, resilient voices, and beyond, and create a movement, an initiative behind that in the community, in my state, and try to advance it to other states pending funding, but to get, legislators, stakeholders,
Right.
community leaders, families, all wrapped around this to be able to translate, preventative actions, preservation, and just have people voices be heard, and
Yes.
try to bridge the gap between the disparities that we know within our system and within our communities. With that being said, this has been Resilient Voices and Beyond, season 2, episode 23. I hope you guys have a good night, good morning, good whatever you're listening to this. Talk to you guys soon.